This is basically my takeoff on a copper john. A copper john is one of those flies by John Barr that has a whole lot of wraps of copper wire for the body, and just tightly wrapped, so it makes a really heavy body, plus a bead, and then it's got an epoxy wing case and all sorts of other stuff on it. But I simplified it a little bit and make it a tenkara fly. And there's this type of hackling is called reverse hackling, and it's a Sakasa Kebari type thing. And this is something that people associate with tenkara flies, but tenkara flies really can be anything. You can use any fly at all for tenkara, and there's a whole variety of tenkara flies which are not reverse hackle like this. But so this is just one of the techniques that's pretty neat. I really like the way this looks, and I think it's a cool sort of way to do hackle. And when you pull this through the water, these fibers that stick out, they really pulse. And they work even when you're fishing a regular fly rod. So I like this style, and I've been tying a lot of them. The one key characteristic of tenkara flies is that they are simple, okay, and easy to tie. Not too many materials, which I love, and you can tie them in like a few minutes without any problems at all. So for me, that means I'm not afraid of losing them, which is a good thing.
You're an excellent forecaster, but your back cast leaves a little bit to be desired.
Oh, I lose them all over the place. Yesterday I lost, 6 flies to snags. I don't know how I managed to do that, but I did.
That was at your bench.
No. That's my way of telling you I was fishing a stream yesterday.
Did you catch some fish?
Sadly, no. I watched my buddy catch fish.
You see.
He caught them, and I hooked and lost one. I completely missed 2 others that had come up for the fly, and those are the only ones that I saw all day.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like that. Okay.
Where did you go, Mark? Where?
Raven River.
The North Raven?
No.
And
Just-
how was Mr. Anderson?
I was not fishing with Don.
Okay.
No, as another friend who has access to some property on there. Okay, so basically I've started out, I've got a hook in the vise. This is a C67S, which is a heavy wire wet fly hook. Some people use these for egg patterns and other things like that. And I've got a bead on it. But what I'm going to do, and this is something that I always do with bead heads, is I'm going to build up a base for it and cement it in so that the bead stays put. Okay, and what I discovered years ago when I was tossing little woolly buggers with a bead head is that the bead flying through the air would go pound, and it would pound the body material back, and then eventually it would be all loose up here, and fly would sort of fall apart. So what I do with beads, unlike Phil Rowley, who doesn't do anything like this to secure his beads, is I always put on a layer of thread that is just thick enough for the front part of the bead to fit through, and then build it up in the back so that the larger hole on the bead is going to stay there where it is as well. So you'll have to excuse me because I found out about this presentation at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and I did not get a chance to practice my tying. But usually I just keep on putting that up there and making wraps of thread until it is just snug but not tight. See, now Oh, there it is. Okay, so that it still moves. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build this up in front here. And what I used to do with the flies that I tie for myself is I just hop over the thread like that, or hop over the bead with the thread, and there you can see the thread on the bead. It doesn't really matter, but since this is presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip finish and tie on again. Okay, so then we jam that there, tie on again there. And then I'm going to make a whole bunch of wraps here, just to make sure that this bead is being held in position. Okay. And then I'm going to take some head cement. I'll cement the front. So that's done. And then I'm going to take some and let it flow into there so that it's flowing into the hole of the bead. And that was a little much head cement. I should have used a little less, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to wrap this up like that. Building up lots of wraps. Okay, so I'm just going to wick away some of the head cement. Okay, so there, I've secured the bead in. It's not going to move. Then, for this one, I'm going to use some partridge. So here I have a skin that I bought many years ago. I can't remember. I think I bought this at Bow River Trout Fitters in Calgary. It was $21.60, and I thought that was an outrageous price. But if you want to see outrageous prices, go look at partridge skins now. 40 plus bucks for a skin.
Still cheaper than buying a shotgun and getting your own.
Now, unless you got a friend who can go out and get them.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so here you have the feathers, and what you want is these feathers down here. These are the ones that are good for soft hackles. So when I'm doing these things, and I always try to tie up in bunches of 6, 12, 24, or sometimes 36. So if I'm going to be doing a batch of 24 flies, what I will do is I will size and pick out at least 30 hackles, because I know that I'm going to mess up at some point. I'm going to break the hackle, I'm going to pull it apart, it's going to go in the wrong direction, it's going to turn out to be an ugly one, and I'm going to want to rip it off and put on a new one. So I always have lots of extras, okay? So here I've got a bunch, and I do this all beforehand. This is not while I'm tying, but I will do this beforehand. And here we have, you can see that? I don't want any of this fluffy stuff, so I'm just going to take and rip the fluffy stuff off. So there I have the prepared hackle. That's how I do it. And I'll do as I say, I'll do 30 of these before I even get around to tying. I'll also lay out all my materials so that I have all the materials for the fly ready before I start tying. So hooks, thread, everything is ready. Okay? And then another hint is on these feathers here, you sometimes find these aftershaft feathers, like that, which Phil Rowley uses for his wastrel leech. So I just, and for years I just threw them out. So now I just take them, I save them. I have a little hook box on my desk, and I just put them in there and save them. Okay, so then when I've done a whole bunch of things, then I'm going to be sizing them, and I'm looking. Okay, so with this one, you want the hackles to extend out pretty far, and sometimes you'll be pulling off the feathers, and some of them are too big and some of them are too small. So what I will do is I will go and I will divide them up. These ones are big. These ones are for really big flies. So I've got them all prepared. They're ready to go. These ones are small. These are for small flies. And these ones are for medium-sized ones. So preparation ahead of time, it's just something that works for me. It doesn't, not everybody does that. But if you do all of the stuff ahead of time, then you're not stopping when you're tying the fly to go and dig around and find the right size hackle and then that stuff. So prep everything ahead of time. Now, the way I tie on the hackle for this, and this is the one I've done for size, is I make it like that. So there's a triangle there, and then these ones are pulled back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wrap in there down to there. Okay. Now with these partridge and other game birds, sometimes it's really hard to hold on to them and make them and do the wraps properly. So what I'll do is I'll get one of these rotary hackle pliers or regular hackle pliers, and then this is a trick that Barry White showed me many years ago. Is I'm folding these feathers back, and then because this is a reversed hackle, what I'm doing is I'm basically putting one wrap behind the next one. So we're just going to go around, and we go around a couple times. Yeah, that's not turned out quite so nice. So let's. So one there. Sometimes you have to force these things to go in the direction you want them to go in. And then you're into the thick stem of the. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip that off there. I'm going to snip off the triangle that was there. Make a bunch of wraps over that. And then I'm going to pull these forward and wrap them forward up to the bead so that they're going to stick forward and they're going to stick out. Is everyone with me so far? So, and there I've got an okay distribution of hackle fibers around the around the hook shank, and I'm just going to take and finish this off because I finished with this tying thread, and this is 6/0 uni thread, and the reason why I use 6/0 uni thread is it builds up bulk underneath the underneath the thing. Now some people say that you can't whip finish off these things, but you can. You just have to sort of move it here and there in order to get the... Okay, so the next part of the fly is the copper. So I'm using medium, what is it? Ultra wire from WAPC or UTC, and I'm using medium because this is the thickness of the body that I want to get. If I was tying a much smaller one, I would use a smaller diameter wire. But basically, I'm just gonna wrap this on. So I'm gonna start down at the bend here, and then as much as possible touching wraps. All the way up to into the thorax. Okay, so it's not quite touching perfectly down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my thumbnail and force them together. And then I should have a better pair of scissors than this, but cut that off, and then these final, my thumbnail just sort of push that into place so that it's just sort of there, and then cut off the other side. You can see that it's not quite touching wraps on this side, so I'm gonna. Now, with this end, it doesn't matter if I'm a little off, but you can just see that I can't get that to look a little nicer. There. Okay. So there's my body. No tail. And then I'm going to use peacock curl to cover up this thorax. So I'm going to switch to an olive thread, and this is finer olive thread. It's an 8/0. Basically just start it up in here. And then I'm going to get a couple pieces of peacock curl. And snip the tips off because the tips are the weakest part. And then tie this in like that. Okay, so I'm going to be doing 2 layers of this. So I do a wrap around the thread, just make a little bit of a rope there, and come back to there, and just basically tie that off. So there's your thorax. Okay. I'm just going to finish this off with just a few wraps of thread. And I had some fibers there that got caught, so I'm just going to keep them out of the way. Now, things are blowing away. That's okay. Okay, so now what we need is just a tiny bit of glue on there. There's a piece of wire sticking out that I should have got trapped under the thread. So I'm just going to force it into position. There. Okay, so now you're looking at this and thinking, okay, but then there's all that copper wire that's loose, right? And that could actually come loose. So I'm going to take some Sally Hansen's. Which is great stuff. I've tried all sorts of things, Gorilla Super Glue and Loctite and all sorts of things. I keep on coming back to Sally Hansen's. And just basically, Yep.
Hardener.
Nail polish hardener, yeah. But I'm gonna just spread that all over there. Okay. Okay, so that's the first coat. What I'll do is I'll let that sit for a couple hours at least, or maybe overnight, and then I'll do one, maybe two more coats. So that's basically the fly. It works really well. You got the peacock curl, you got the shine of the copper, you got the movement from all these hackle fibers, and you got the bead also weight to get it down. I think it's going to be a winning pattern, and I can't say that it's mine because it's really just a copper john with the different hackle on it. Yes.